In today's video, we will be looking at the MSI Mag Forge M100R. We'll be taking an unboxing of this case and then we'll be going through a little overview of all the features of the case. So let's take a very quick unboxing and then we'll jump into those features right after. Let's go. So here it is, our little M100R case from MSI. Basically, this case is an MATX case, or a Micro-ATX case, and it has 3 ARGB fans at the front, with 1 also at the back too. So obviously you get 4 in total. Also, this case features a tempered glass side panel window, so obviously you can see all your gorgeous components in there, which is obviously a nice little feature. And also it does have the power supply shroud as well, the PSU shroud, and we will cover that in a bit, but let's concentrate with the front first. So obviously we have a perforated mesh at the front, which allows plenty of air to come through, which I do like for most modern cases nowadays. I mean, I think the days of the tempered glass at the front as well as the side have kind of been done now. I kind of feel like we're full mesh at the front with no tempered glass, and then obviously tempered glass just on the side. Some cases now are even doing tempered glass on the back side, like this side, but again, I don't know why they do that, because there's nothing to see there. You want your cables hidden behind that, so I never get that. But anyway, let's get the front off so we can actually see the fans. Okay, so annoyingly, the cable's actually stuck to the front panel here, so I can't really get it off too well to show you guys. But I'll just have to kind of, there we go. I'll just have to kind of leave it out the way a bit. So it's going to be a little bit funny angle, but hey, it'll be all right. So as you can see, there is the 3 fans there at the front. ARGB. Obviously, the colours are all on the actual fan blades themselves. Personally, I kind of prefer the actual ring ones where it has the RGB on the ring and then the actual fans are black, or the actual fan blades are black, sorry. I mean, that's just personally what I like, but each to their own on that one really. This wire is actually for the LEDs, to change the colour of the fans, obviously, the little LED button, but I'll touch on that in a bit. Obviously it does have the little MSI logo as well, which is kind of a nice touch too. And it goes on really easy. Just give it a little bash and you're there. So obviously let's move to the top now. Moving to the top of the case, we have our big clicky power button. That's nice. We have our reset button. Can't really hear a click out of that, but it's okay. We have 2 status LEDs, I think one for power and one for hard drive activity, which is kind of a bit redundant nowadays with obviously the RGB and everything, but it's there if you need it. So we have our microphone and headphone jack obviously next, and then kind of a little bit of a disappointing sort of thing I think with this case, which a little bit kind of marks it down a little bit. It does have 2 USB 2 ports and then only 1 USB 3 port. And they're the USB A types as well, sorry, you don't obviously get USB-C on the front panel because this is a budget case. I only paid £55, which I think is a pretty good deal. Most cases nowadays you're probably looking 60 plus, so really anything under sort of £60 is considered a very budget case nowadays, and to get 4 RGB fans for 55 quid I think is a decent deal. Some people might not like the MATX form factor, but I do think it's nice because it's a little bit more of a compact case and a little bit more smaller. So it's a little bit more easier for people to fit on their desk, I think. And yes, just to round off, we do have our LED little button that I was talking about there, which changes obviously the RGB colours for you. Now there is a hub at the back, which obviously again I will move on to, but that doesn't have to be controlled on your motherboard. That can just be controlled with a SATA power cable, and then you can just control with the LED button at the front here. So if you do have an older motherboard that doesn't support ARGB and doesn't have the 5-volt ARGB header on it, then obviously you're still okay with this case, which is obviously really nice I think, and something that I think's actually pretty good that they've done MSI here. So kudos on that one. And I am a bit of an MSI fanboy, so I'm going to be a little bit biased, but hey, they just make good products, so what can I say? So we do get a dust filter on the top. If you want to put a top radiator, I probably wouldn't go with it. I mean, the clearances to the motherboard are a little bit tight, as we will look later in the video. You can get, looks like a 240 radiator, and that's about it. I don't think 280s are supported, and you won't get 140mm fans up there. You only get two 120mm fans at the top. Obviously at the front you could put a 360 radiator, because there is three 120mm fans at the front. So you could potentially put a 360 radiator in here, but again, your tolerances and your kind of clearances aren't that great on this case for that. And I'd probably suggest that you probably find it quite tough to put a 360 in here, actually, really. I mean, personally, I kind of feel like a case like this is perfect for an air build. So air cooling only with air towers. That's what I kind of feel, that this is a budget case and it's not really catered for water cooling, or AIOs, in my opinion. There isn't a lot of room, to be honest, inside there once you're trying to squeeze that radiators in and stuff. But the options are there. You could do it, but I'd probably say just stick with air cooling if you are going to go with this case. So let's move to the sort of rear side of it, where the rear of your motherboard is. Obviously a 120mm RGB fan, as I talked about previously. A little bit of sort of like perforation here, just to let a bit of air through, which is okay. We have our motherboard I/O shield at the front here, where you can obviously mount that for your motherboard. Obviously 4 PCI Express ports as well, well slots even, sorry. They are actually the non-replaceable ones, the one-time snap-off type ones, the ones which aren't very good, and it is a bit of a budget kind of saver, this sort of thing. I don't really like it. And then we have our PSU shroud, and the PSU can only go one way, so you'd have to put it fan down on this case. The mounting isn't there to actually put it fan up. And now moving on to the rear of the case, or the sort of the underside of the case. We have our PSU sort of filtration here for our power supply, obviously. This is just one of those like not one use, but those sort of flimsy pull-out ones, not the proper ones which pull out like that and you can slot back in. They're okay, they're a bit fiddly, like even now when I'm trying to fit it in, it's a bit fiddly, but you can do it, it's okay. It's passable in my book, for a budget case anyway. We also do have 2 screws here for the hard drive caddy. You'll be able to fit 2 3.5-inch drives in this. Obviously you can fit 2.5-inch drives in those bays as well, but they are kind of more catered for hard drives. But if you take out these 2 screws, you can actually just take the caddy out altogether, and that will give you more room at the front for your power supply, if you need that extra room for your cables and to stuff all your cables away and everything. And then we have 4 kind of large feet with obviously this little rubber as well, which is nice to see. So it's not going to leave marks on your desk, and it's got a bit of clearance there for your power supply as well, so all good on that. Let's move to the rear panel now. So obviously we've got thumb screws on here. They're not captive ones to take off the rear panel, but again, budget case. I'm not really too bothered on that one personally. It's okay for my book anyway. It's all right. Quick installation guide there, which I'll just put to the side. As kind of the first thing that you see here, we do have our 6 RGB fan hub thing, which is like, it's for the it's for the RGB side of the fans. So if you're hooking up 6 ARGB fans into this, then you can hook the 2 extra ones into here, and there's obviously 4 which are already pre-routed for you in the case, which are the 4 case fans, which is nice because you don't have to pre-route those, which is good. But if you do want to add 2 more addressable RGB fans, you can, because there is extra room in the hub for that. So that's nice. And then as you can see, the hub actually just powers by a SATA power cable, so from your power supply. So that's kind of nice, you know. If you, like I say, if you've got older motherboards, that'll be fine as well. If you do have the newer type motherboards, which has the 5-volt 3-pin addressable RGB headers, you can obviously use that little connector there, if you can see that, hopefully, and that will connect straight into your motherboard, and then you can potentially control your RGB from your motherboard rather than the actual case itself, using the button at the front there. But I'm sure that will make sense to more people who actually kind of more regularly understand that, but I just want to kind of clear that up for maybe beginners or people who aren't so familiar with RGB. So there we go. You do have, unfortunately, you do have 3-pin headers for your fans to actually control your speed on your fans, which is a little bit annoying because they're not PWM. Yeah, it does actually come with a 4-header to 1-header sort of like extension cable. It's like a splitter, so like 4. It's the 4 split into the 1 on the fan headers of your motherboard. You can just put into 1 rather than put it into like 4 different fan headers, if you know what I mean. So obviously that's really good for budget motherboards. So that's really handy to have. I'll just take that bag off so you can see that now. So you do also in the bag actually get 2 PCI blanking plates as well, 2 extra ones. So that's obviously nice that they've included that, because obviously that means if you've broken maybe 3 PCI slots and you only need to use 2, you do have a spare blanking one, so that's good. So this is the little sort of fan splitter thing that I was talking about. So you can fit 4 fans into there. 4 ports, if you can see that hopefully on the camera, and then it just fits into 1 fan header. So that's obviously really nice that I've included that with the actual case. It's really nice because that's probably about a £5 extra thing that you'd have to buy otherwise. So you know, you are getting a bit of value with this case as well. There's obviously plenty of cable ties as well and that, and then obviously the screws, but we won't talk about that too much. Let's move on. I'll put down below the power supply sort of room that you have before you actually hit the hard drive tray. Before you hit that, there's still plenty of room. You could actually just keep the hard drive tray in, to be honest, but it's up to you if you want to take it out. I'd probably say take it out if you're only using NVMe drives, obviously, but I think for me, because I'm doing this for a build, to actually flip, I'll probably leave it in there just so if people want to put in their hard drive, they have that option. Again, it's kind of a budget case, so you kind of get all these fiddly little front panel headers, which is not great for your like power switch and your reset switch and your power LED and your hard drive LED, but hopefully you can see that on camera. But yeah, it's okay, it will do. I don't love them, but I prefer when the NZXT do the block, so it just fits into your front panel header, that one block, and it's done. But it is what it is, it's fine. HD audio, which again isn't blacked out as well, which is again something I don't like to see on cases. I like to see full blackout on my cables, on everything, because it just looks neater, but it is what it is. We do have a USB 2 header as well, which obviously is for the USB 2 ports at the front, which is, well, there's 2 of them, and then you just get 1 USB 3 header as well, which only controls 1 USB 3 front header at the front, but it's okay, it will do. Not the greatest, but for budget cases you do kind of have to have a little bit of leeway, and there's a little bit of 1 or 2 things that you kind of have to put up with in budget cases, which aren't fantastic, but don't really take away from the actual case itself. In terms of clearance, you should actually be fine. There does look plenty of room here. I'd say about 1 inch behind the motherboard tray, maybe even a little bit more. You should be fine in terms of putting all your cables there, but it's going to be a little bit tight, so just be a little bit wary. And there are some cable tie down points as well, fair amount round here as well at the top there, so you should be fine for cable management personally at the back here. But again, maybe if you're doing a complex build with AIOs, and especially if you're going water cooling or down that side, then yeah, you're going to need something bigger in terms of a case and with more cable management area as well. But if you're doing a very budget build, this is going to be perfect, I think. But let's move to the front now. So obviously for the front, to take off the screws here, they just again thumb screws that aren't captive, but again it's okay. They come fine, and I'm not really sure how this actually comes out, so hopefully it doesn't fall out. Let me just see. Okay, yeah, it literally just comes off like that. Don't love that mechanism personally. Well, usually with cases, even the budget cases, they come as little sort of lip bit, like where it just holds the glass little, and then obviously you can just pull the glass out, and then it stays on the lip, and then you just pull it off and then away, which is a better system, but it will do. It's okay. I don't love that glass system, but it is where it is. You got European Union regulatory notices things and what have you, but again, load of crap, and we won't really go over that. The power supply straddle doesn't actually cover the full power supply, which I don't like. You can see the label on the power supply, so if you are using a budget power supply, be aware of that. You might want to use maybe a little bit better of a brand on the power supply, so it does show a little bit better if you are doing like a flip build. To flip your PC for profit, obviously. So as I said, Micro-ATX sort of size here. The 6 standoffs are pre-installed for you, which is nice. But if you do have a motherboard which is a little bit bigger, which goes maybe onto 8 standoffs for the Micro-ATX standard, you will have to put the additional pillars in there. And I'm pretty sure the additional standoffs are in there. Yeah, they are in there. I can see them, so that's all good. In terms of graphics card clearance, I think you've got about 300mm there until you get to these, till you get to the fans. But I will put it below the exact amount. But yes, if you are using a AIO, then you will lose a little bit of space, and you're probably down to about 280, I'd say. But I think for most graphics cards, and certainly budget graphics cards, sort of around about the 280 or so millimeter in size is going to be perfect for most of those cards. So I'd say if you're using any kind of budget cards, you're fine here. But again, if you are planning to do more of a high build, more higher price sort of build, or a high end build in this sort of case, I would pay a little bit more for your case and get a little bit better. But like I say, for budget builds, this is perfect. In terms of CPU clearance, for your CPU cooler, I think it's about 170, but again, I'll put it below if it is a little bit less. But I'm pretty sure you can fit more or less any tower cooler you want in here. There might be one or two which don't fit, but I think you're going to be fine mostly here. So there are cutouts for the CPU power connector, your EPS power connector. There are some there, and the clearance isn't too bad. I mean, you've got probably about 1 inch or so before you hit the top there, maybe about 2 inches even. No, about 2 inches actually, before you hit the top of the case there. So you've got a little bit of room for your motherboard and your cables to kind of fit at the top there, and any other cables that you want to manage there. The management here isn't great. There's one here which might be not big enough if you're putting a bigger motherboard in, but you do have three other ones a little bit further back. So the cable management isn't perfect for your like 24 pin and your USB 3 front header, but overall there's enough room, and you can do a fairly tidy job. I reckon you could do quite a fairly tidy job on this case if you were prepared to put a little bit of time into cable management. So yeah guys, I think that kind of wraps it up for this case. I mean, I personally really like it. I think it's a nice little case for 55 quid, just to do a little PC flip, which we will be having a PC flip coming along, like a little build video. About £325 I'm aiming for this build. And we're gonna have this is a bit of a sneak preview if you've stayed this long in the video. We're gonna have a Ryzen 3 3100, and then we're gonna have a B450 motherboard by MSI, and we are going to have probably a 1060, but I haven't actually brought that yet. But I'm hoping we can get a GTX 1060 for our graphics card, the 6 GB version, which would be really cool. So yeah, I hope you're looking forward to that, and obviously if you are, hit the subscribe button so you can see that video when it does release. There's going to be plenty more videos coming, so obviously Obviously, please like the video as well to help coverage for the YouTube algorithm, obviously. And I hope you like this video, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.